We have a good number of technologies in Server 2016 to help us design and implement a remote access infrastructure to support things like virtual private networks. In this nugget, we're going to take a high-level look at what these technologies are and the scenarios they support. All of these technologies have the same purpose, and that is to provide remote users and remote sites with access to our corporate network. And they do so over the public internet. And that's really the very definition of a VPN, a virtual private network, extending a private network over a public network. Now, the three remote access technologies we're going to be looking at in this section all work very similar under the hood. The differences, again, lie in the scenarios they support and the requirements associated with them. But there are three core components to every VPN. Number one is tunneling and encapsulation, which is creating that secure channel for communication across that public network between our remote entities and our corporate network. Number two is encryption. That data is encrypted and packaged at the source, flows through that pipe, unpackaged and decrypted at the destination, and those roles can change depending on which way that transmission is going. And number three is authentication, ensuring that our users and machines are who they say they are. And we have a nugget dedicated in this section to both encryption and authentication protocols. Now, what you're looking at right here is a remote access VPN, otherwise known as a client-to-site VPN, where we want to provide our users with essentially a direct link through that tunnel to our corporate network. This is a fairly simple scenario to configure. On the corporate network side of things, we spin up a VPN server, and we use what's known as routing remote access services, a Server 2016 role that has been around for a very long time. This is the server that is used to create that tunnel, and then all traffic flows through that server inside of the corporate network. The downside with what I like to call here the traditional VPN approach is really on the client side here. We need to create and configure these VPN connections, which isn't too big of a deal because we have tools that can automate that process, which we'll look at here in a future nugget, but also for the user themselves. They need to manually connect and disconnect from these VPNs. Next up, we have site-to-site VPNs, which is primarily used to connect branch networks to corporate networks. This requires multiple VPN servers, one on each end, where that tunnel and that pipe is created between those servers, providing both locations with access to each other's resources. This removes the need to create and configure VPN connections on client machines, but these are really two completely different scenarios, as a remote access VPN is generally geared towards the user, right? Those users at home or traveling abroad, and site-to-site is, again, to connect multiple locations together. Which brings us to direct access, which is a much improved version of remote access or a traditional VPN. This is an always-on VPN that doesn't require any manual intervention from our clients. It has a ton of great features built into it and some intelligence built into it, so it knows, based on your location, whether you're on the corporate network or whether you're outside the corporate network, where it will just automatically turn on that VPN connection. Direct access is superior in almost every way. The only downside is the steep list of requirements associated with it. On the user side, all of their machines must be running enterprise copies of Windows and they must be domain joined. On the server side, we must have our own public key infrastructure in place. It's the price we pay for this luxurious VPN solution. So the bottom line here is use direct access if you can support it. If you can't meet those requirements or you need to support older clients or non-Windows clients, you'll need to fall back to remote access VPN or a third-party solution, which there are many. Over the next handful of nuggets, we're going to dig into each one of these remote access solutions as we look at how to configure and implement them. In this CBT nugget, we took a high-level look at the remote access technologies available to us in Server 2016 and the scenarios they support. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.